What I want to do is I want to do a few more stats with you because you're going to find that helpful, and then I want to help you understand what we've done to apply those stats, if that makes sense. So starting with a few more stats that will help you with your strategy in particular, both locally and if you work regionally, and then I'm going to help you with how we've applied some of those stats. So firstly, having done some of those exercises on Talking Jesus, there was a few questions I felt that remained, and I wanted to map what was happening around that team of practicing Christians. So we did some more theory on, and we did we did a poll of 8,000 people in the population. So we studied 8,000 people in the population so that we could get a breakdown that was big enough of that team of practicing Christians and find out more about them. We did this survey, we've got the date up there, hasn't it? Yeah, 2017, so it's quite very recent. And again, we discovered something very similar. The practicing Christians in this survey worked out about 6% of the population. We asked them a really interesting extra question. Can you see that middle group? We asked people whether they themselves considered themselves to be a follower of Jesus. We thought this was quite a high bar. And it worked out that 14% of the population in this country would self-identify as a follower of Jesus. That's really interesting, because it's more than the people that we've diagnosed as practicing. Does that make sense? So if anything, it tells us that what we've measured in practice, more people than the people we think are practicing have got quite a high, they're willing to tick what I think is quite a high bar, and so they're an active follower of Jesus. This will help us unpack that category of practicing. Can you see how many people go to church? The big grey column is once a week. Basically, 92% of those who are practicing are actually saying that they are doing weekly attendance. Remember, this is across all denominations. Their attendance is weekly. So although we used monthly as a measure, which we often do, so that's used by a lot of researchers across the country, use monthly, actually, in practice, a lot more people are with us weekly. A lot more people are with us weekly than we anticipated. We wanted to know what the situation was across the population, across the practicing Christians versus population on age. This is something I did just flick for the people who were with me for the millennial workshop. This is really important. Oh, I would sort of wave up there, but it's so big. This is practicing Christians on one side, broken down by age. So as you know, and we know, we have got more practicing Christians aged 65 and above than we have people in the population, if you like, people in the population aged 65 and above. So we have an over-representation in our churches of people who are aged 65 and above. But interestingly enough, when you look at 18 to 24 and 25 to 34, although we are out of kilter with the population, we are not as badly out of kilter as we thought. So what's going on there, you might ask, Rachel? That's because this is practicing Christians across every denomination. It's not just Anglican. So that tells us that you can be a Christian in those age brackets. You might just not necessarily always be worshipping with us. So it means that there isn't a culture or a generation that, if you like, the gospel doesn't work for. So sometimes we just go, well, it obviously doesn't work for that generation. Does that make sense? That might be our reading of our church. But that's not actually the case. Also, in that age bracket, people like to be together. It's a stage. We do life stages. And at that particular life stage, a crowd gathers a crowd. So if you're in those age brackets, often you want to be with lots of people in that age bracket. And then maybe as you go through different stages in life, you might choose to go more across the generations. So people move and there's a mobility stage. But that tells us that's good news. All generations can be active Christians. Do you see what I mean? It's not that there is a generation that can't be. Also, something about social grade. I've just dropped that in there because I think this is important for your strategy on particularly amongst the poor. Can you see, this is, again, we've matched practicing Christians versus the population in each of those class brackets. So we have got, the church is out of kilter with the population. We've got more people who are AB professions, who are Christians, than are in the population. It changes. There are less active Christians who are C2, a big drop less than the population. In fact, that's the group we are most out of kilter with. And we're not the same as, but we're doing a little bit better actually at DE professions. So there is the group in the middle that we are really poor at, and that's nationally across every denomination when it comes to practicing Christians, and that's the C2 group. That's quite challenging to us, and when it comes to Anglicans, we would be further this end. We're even more out of kilter with the population than other denominations. So that really ties into that strategy about diversity. This is a breakdown of practicing Christians by denomination. We still come out very strong in there. We've got 26% of practicing Christians are Anglican. Can you see the big impact the Roman Catholic Church is having in our nation currently? So it's a massive 23%. So we have a very active, growing Catholic Church in our country at the moment. And they're really, that's really good news for us. There's some real partnership work that we can do there with that group. And then you can see some of the others that are big, like the Pentecostal is at 10%. Other is interesting at 14%. There are people who perhaps don't quite know which denomination they're in. Now, there were two really key things in this study that I wanted to know. One I just popped up to you, which was the age at which people come to faith. And this was how the 0 to 4 piece became so important. So nationally, under a strapline of church growth starts young. I mean, church growth starts really young. And perhaps we haven't realised how important it is to resource and work with 0 to 4s, which is why I got you all to got people to put their hands up if they work to 0 to 4s. 0 to 4, I just don't know how to keep on saying it, but it's going to be the new thing. Everyone's going to get frustrated with me saying about it. But we have got to put some real focus, energy and resource in what we do to 0 to 4s. We took this to a summit across all the denominations and thought, is there a possibility that as a church, if we all work together across every denomination, we could make sure that every 0 to 4 in this country could have an experience of faith and could meet real Christians and actually have some experience. I have no idea how we do that, by the way, just yet. But I was like, we have to at least think about that as a possibility. Because if we were able to do that, that would change round our future projection as church. If we could do that one thing. So if you gave me, in my role, one thing I could do, what would be your one thing you could do? Looking at these stats, I'd go, can we reach every 0 to 4? Can we reach every 0 to 4? So does that mean in a deprived area, we take our parent and toddler group in on a bus? I know that's what the Message Trust does. They've got toddler buses, and they go in and they run parent and toddler groups in the most deprived areas and have seen the mothers and the children come to faith. That's not actually too difficult. So if you think about the demographic of people that we've got in our church, we can do parent and toddler groups. We can. We've got people who can sit next to mothers and listen to them and be there for them and make them a cup of tea. Well, we could just do that everywhere, right across the country. And we would see something happen if we did that everywhere. So we could actually have mobile teams of those across a diocese that go into every deprived area and start doing church for those people in that place. Hey, we could do it on a bus. That'll work. So I think that 0 to 4, just it's like, you know, you suddenly see something and your brain goes, well, we often say, well, what I want is, in my church, what I need is, and there's a certain group of people that we imagine that we want. But maybe our gifts and resource might say we could do 0 to 4s, and if we did that across the nation altogether, we would transform our nation. Does that make sense? So that's quite exciting. Anyway, that's something I'm just beginning to really think on with these figures. The other really important figure here is we asked what age, if people had been a Christian, we asked what age did they leave us. This is the age at which people leave the faith. Now, do you remember with the figures I was doing earlier, we had that 13% group of 11 to 18-year-olds, and we all scratched our heads and went, how does that work? Well, we lose a lot. so that by the time we've got through teenage and young adulthood, we come out maybe with a stable population of about 6% of adults. Does that make sense? So we are losing people. So we do need to work on getting in all 0 to 4s, and at the same point we need to address loss. So we lose people from age 11. The biggest loss is age 11 to 18. Then our loss is 19 to 24, and we're still losing people 25 to 34. So that is a kind of reminder that what's really happening is that we're probably gathering a reasonable number in, then we're hemorrhaging out, and then we go much more stable. So again, it tells us there's some pivotal years which we need to put resource, energy in, whether you're a diocese, whether you're working on a deanery plan, whether you're working on a local church plan. Something about, let's increase the number that come in from 0 to 4, big emphasis. Then how do we retain what's really going on in this group all the way through where we're losing people in teenage and young adulthood? And if we nail that, everything will be different. Great, good. I can go home now. Okay, so what have we been doing as a group? So we've been looking at some of these stats for a while. These ones are really new, so we've only just begun to put some energy and emphasis into thinking about this nationally. But we will be doing that, I guarantee you. But as we go on, we've been thinking about, I've been working with somewhere called Hope. So I'm going to sort of transition now to having a look at Hope. Hope helped with these stats. Hope helped with the Talking Jesus stats. Because I've discovered that the missionary task is one for the whole church in this country, across every denomination. And there is a massive wave of unity right now in this country that is... I don't know when we last had a wave of unity like this. I haven't been around long enough. But it is quite staggering. Mike Eastwood came, we had this summit, and Mike Eastwood, who works in Church Meeting, came, and he said, I've not been in a room with this level of ethnic diversity before. For a long, we had heads of church denominations, major churches and major streams, and over a third of the room were from the ethnic churches, who are such a gift to us. And it was so lovely that we could pray together. We could look at all these stats together and think about making a plan together, and we could work for this nation together. Things like the Korean church, who now come and just pray for us. They come, in one person stays, and they're bringing trips and trips of people from Korea to pray for our nation. What a gift! When did we ever deserve such committed prayer for our nation from the Korean church? It staggers me. And then the gift of, we've been working with the black majority church leaders, and just how they've exploded in growth in this country, and how if we work with them, everything is so much stronger. And so nationally, there is a real energy to work together, and I hope and pray that that's in your locality. Some of the stories of just church leaders praying together regularly across denominations. It can change villages, towns, and cities when God's people pray together. So I don't know if you're a church leader, if you're already in a prayer group like that, you'll be like, yes, that definitely changes things. If you're not, why not be the person who starts it? If you don't do that already, why not be the person who starts it? Because it can be revolutionary, because then you can plan together which bit of this you might do best. We don't have to do it all, but we can do things together. So I just say we've really seen energy in praying, and Hope has got this dream that every church in the UK could grow by 10% new followers of Jesus. I'd just like to say that's a lot easier if there's only 20 of you in your church. Because if there's only 20 of you in your church, you've only got to get 2 new people next year. And you've just heard that 1 in 5 of your friends and family want to know more. So 2 new people is surely not that difficult. There's a lovely story in that little Talking Jesus booklet of a church in Chester Diocese, really normal Anglican church. She said she heard the Talking Jesus stuff. She went home excited. Her church did the Faith Pictures course, Church Army Faith Pictures course, that is one in one of the workshops. They got trained easily in how to talk about their faith. And she said, we have now got a steady trickle of new people. I'm like, that's all it takes. We're not actually expecting for the doors to burst, 100 people to walk in. We're expecting a steady trickle of new people. Now, a steady trickle of new people in every church in this country is actually a deluge. Does that make sense? A steady trickle of new people in every church in this country is actually, statistically, a deluge. But for your vision, where you are, if there's 100 of you, that's 10 new people. If there's 20 of you, it's 2. If there's 10 of you, it's 1. Now that is actually quite doable. Does that make sense? So it's not it sounds a bit big, but it's not. But across a whole nation, it's a massive impact. We've been praying. Now, you mentioned you did Thy Kingdom Come. We're really linking Thy Kingdom Come and Hope next year. We pray that God will use us. We pray that God will change our nation and that we will be able to reach people, and then we do things. And we're totally committed that the local church is where this happens. You know, there isn't a plan B, folks. Sometimes we just look for a plan B. Well, God must have another thing up his sleeve. He cannot possibly think that we are the answer. And he really does. He genuinely thinks we as the local church are the answer. And that's why we're totally committed to helping local churches do mission and evangelism. How? I think you've all probably got one of these little brochures about 18. And in the middle of that, you'll see really simply, it's just making the most of all the calendar opportunities that we have. Here, page 9 and 10. Page 9 and 10, in the middle of that brochure. We know we have great opportunities. It's who can I invite? Who can I pray for? Who can I invite? And so we're trying to produce just really simple things that will help your church to be really intentional about inviting people along and being missional for a year. We looked at all the Talking Jesus research and we came up with these little strap lines. Pray for 5. That's the pray for 5 for each one. Help everybody to have something to say. That's either do a course or practice or think about it on having something to say to their friends and neighbours. We've discovered that people find it so much easier to talk about their faith when they've got something in their hand. Did any of you see the Queen's book for her birthday? Did anyone see the Queen's book? Well, 1 million of those went out because it's so much easier when you've got something in your hand to talk to somebody. I know one lady in her old people's home had really struggled to know how to share her faith. She got given the Queen's book and she went to every single person in her old people's home, gave them a copy of the Queen's book and was able to share something of her faith because she had something in her hand. So we're really committed to try to produce things that can go into your hand that will help, particularly through the calendar moments. I'm going to jump to this one. We tried to pilot last year a Christmas magazine. This sounds so naff. What I absolutely love about so many of these things, they're just quite old school, nothing revolutionary. So last year we tried to just do a few of these, but ended up giving out 300,000. This year we're committed to 1 million. They're free, so there's somebody who's going to fund it for you. You haven't even got to buy this. We discovered when people went door to door with one of these, knocked on the door and said, hello, do you remember? Everyone thinks Christians are friendly, caring, generous and good-humoured. So when you knock on the door and say you're a Christian from the local church, they don't think you're weird. They think you're someone friendly, caring, generous and good-humoured. So you knock on the door and you say, hi, we're from the local church. We want to invite you to our Christmas services. And then you give them this little magazine that helps them think about faith. Is that terrifying? Not really, because you've got something nice to give them in your hand. So like the whole of Leicester Diocese, they're taking this Christmas magazine so they can do every single home. They want to do every single home. Oh, we could do that, couldn't we? If Leicester Diocese can do it, I'm sure Sheffield could. But it's really simple. You give that in and they've got something else to read and it reminds them. Some people last year, because Mary Berry was on the front cover, did come to the carol service thinking Mary Berry was going to be there. So you might need to explain that you actually haven't got the scoop of Miranda Hart turning up on Christmas Day. But it's not complicated. And do you know what? Because when your church goes, oh, I don't know what to say. Well, you could just say, you knock on the door, hello, we brought this to you. This is our little Christmas magazine, nicely produced, so you haven't got to do that bit. And here's an invite to our carol services. Is that difficult? Just checking. How scary is that? That's not too scary. I heard of a church that gave out I can't remember now, was it 400 homemade mince pies to their community? No, 400 people came to their carol services, so they must have given out 2,000 about mince pies. That's a lot of baking. They gave out mince pies in their high street, about 2,000. 400 people came to their carol service. About, was it 20 or 30 people came to their basics course. They ran an alpha course, of which 2 to 3 came to faith and joined their church. We could make some mince pies to bring people to Jesus, couldn't we? That's how simple it is. You could stand in wherever the centre of your community is and just give out a mince pie. I bet you in your churches you've got people who can make mince pies. And then they feel that they can do evangelism because you've explained to them that this year's Christmas evangelism is mince pies. We just need you to bake them on such a massive scale that nobody has ever seen so many mince pies. And then we're just going to go around our community. We're either going to pop round the doors with mince pies. Who would think, if someone turned up your door with homemade mince pies, whatever age they were, from the local church, said, we've made these for you. We've got a Christmas magazine. We'd love to see you over Christmas. I guarantee you, you're going to get a smile from the majority of the population in this country who already think we're friendly, caring, good-humoured and generous. The mince pies just confirm it, don't they? Or stand in the street and give out mince pies. This isn't terrifying and this isn't difficult. A little bit of organisation, yes. And so this is what we're trying to do. There's also carol sheets. You might sometimes struggle with carol sheets. So last year it was one that was partnered with Tear Fund. This one's partnered with the Bible Society. A great carol sheet you can use for all your carol services. That again, they can take away so they can read something when they've left. Do you get visitors for Christmas? What do you hand them that allows them to continue exploring the Christian faith once they've left you? Is it really clear that you are inviting them back? You would love to see them come back next week or the week after or in the new year. People don't know they can come to church. It's really funny. People genuinely don't know they can come to church because they think we're like the golf club and maybe someone has to sponsor you for membership. And others of them probably think they're not good enough to go to church. There's really weird things going on. So we sit there thinking, everyone knows they can come, they just haven't come. They don't even know what time it's on because they can't find it on our websites because we forgot to put essential information. If we do clarity and clear, and when they come to us, please tell them we'd love to see you come back and give them something they can carry on the journey with Jesus with. So it's as simple as having a carol service sheet that helps them to do that. I'm kind of going in reverse now. I've done a lot of Christmas, and we're going reverse through the year, people. Sorry about that. Something about my psychology here. So we've looked at Christmas. We're going to go back into reverse. Did any of you see any of the stuff that we created for the commemoration of the beginning of the World War I? So we're going to do a lot. We'll do that again we'll do this with the Church of England, with Hope. We've got a brilliant new digital team in the middle of the Church of England who are an awesome gift to us. So they're going to work with us so that everything we produce works through Hope, through the Church of England, so we sound like a common voice. But every school in this country is going to do something around marking the end of World War I. In your church, you've probably got a memorial thing. You could trace some of those families and find people. It's just, if you like, there's opportunities to link with our communities where we get unprecedented opportunity to do something to serve our community, to bring people in, and then to invite them back. Every time we do something like this, we build a positive memory, really important, and we can build a relational link. We can build relational links with new people. So these are massive opportunities, particularly for us as the Anglican Church. It's a massive opportunity. Your schools can come and visit you if you put something on. You could think about a service. You might already have got this all planned, but it's coming. It's 18. So could you get a group of you to plan what you might do that makes the most of this opportunity? And then we've been thinking about having parties for peace in the afternoons. You've got to do a formal remembrance. But if you look at any pictures of the end of World War I, this country partied on a massive scale. So as a church, we could party for peace, which would be great for children and families to come to. It's not too difficult, but you can serve your local community. There is an excuse and reason why they'll come and join you, and we can make the most of it. And then we make sure they know that we love them to come back. It's not too complicated. How many of you have people coming at harvest? Yeah, you have extra people at harvest. Again, great opportunity. We know it's an opportunity. We've also thought about the people who maybe don't come to church, but could we share a meal for harvest and give the profits of that meal to charity? This works really well, particularly with millennials. They love social justice. So could we maybe host a meal at our house, invite our friends, and collect money for those who don't have the food to eat? Because you sit there, you invite some of your friends from church, and you invite some of the friends that have never been to church. You mix them up around a meal. This is sounding a bit like Jesus. You mix them up around a meal, and amazing things happen just because you mix them up. Because your non-Christian friends get to know your Christian friends. Or you could do it in your street. It's not rocket science. Nothing I'm saying is rocket science. Nothing I'm saying is really very new. I mean, when you get a Christmas magazine, you're like, Rachel, what did you bring us? It's a Christmas magazine. What's whizzy about that? Nothing whizzy here. Really, really quite old-fashioned. But actually, when people meet people, that's what it's all about. When people meet people, when non-Christians meet Christians, sit round a dinner table and have life-changing conversations, yes. So harvest is a great opportunity to do that. We can sit round a dinner table and do that. We can have summer fun days, going back to the whole calendar here. I'm sure, how many of you go out and do something in the summer, particularly for your communities? Probably some of you do that, don't you? So we might get some of you to share. We'll go into groups in a minute, and you can share some of the best things that you've done in your church that have impacted your community, and if you like, built those relationships. Summer fun days. Sometimes we can put on just one key weekend of invitation where we train our church to invite someone, and particularly on that Sunday, we make sure church runs really well. Obviously, you then need to try to keep that going because they might come back, believe it or not. And when they do, it'd be quite good if it kept going really well. But it helps us sometimes to have a specific day to invite our friends to church. So you can work with your church saying, we're working towards this day when we're all going to try inviting a friend. And the other thing to celebrate that I've learned is don't just celebrate the people who turn up, celebrate everybody who took the risk to invite someone. So when we run Alpha and say, we've run Alpha and say about 30 people have come, I mentally think of how many people must have been invited to get 30 to be there. And then our church needs a huge, well done everyone, you must have invited nearly 200 people between you to see 30 here. Does that make sense? Because it's a scale, whereas often we only get, it is exciting that those people have turned up, but every single invitation, every single time that anyone took the risk to invite any friend, whatever the result, we celebrate. And we tell the stories even when it goes wrong, of when they look at us and they don't want to know. We had a friend do this at church, and she said, I handed an Alpha flyer to someone in her workplace, and they popped it straight into the recycling shredder in front of her. Very disheartening. And she's like, you have just thrown away your invitation to know God and have your life transformed, and you've put it into the shredder. It's disheartening, isn't it? But you need to share those stories as well as the story of the person who took the invitation and came. Does that make sense? So that helps the culture of your church around invitation. If you only celebrate the people who turn up, other people will get disheartened. And then, I haven't got it here, you were probably handed one of these. We're going to Easter. We looked at the stats on the resurrection, and we thought maybe we could produce something that would help people to really engage more with the Easter story. So this is to help people engage more with you. So if everyone who comes at Easter gets one of these as they come or leave the church, does that make sense? They've got something to take away and then read and engage with and to take a step further. So we've produced that, particularly around our stats around Easter. It's really simple. The other thing is, that's an easy thing to give. I am going backwards. This is all quite entertaining through my through the diary. again, this is what we did for Thy Kingdom Come this year. We've still got some of these around. Really simple. I said earlier about a gospel. This is the life. It's Luke's gospel. And it's got a great intro with Justin. So really simple. Thy Kingdom Come we will be doing again this year. We've gone global. How exciting is that? So I just love the fact that we are all praying together. Right across the church. Every denomination. Every tradition. We've all decided to come together and pray. God honours that, doesn't he? God honours it when his people come to pray. So very excited. There'll be lots of Thy Kingdom Come resources to get you, your church, praying. And then this has been amazing. Who's seen a Try Praying booklet before? Anyone seen this? Great, some of you have. Some of the people, do you remember, they said they wanted to know more about Jesus. They might love a Luke's Gospel. Some of the people said they wanted to encounter or experience God. They need one of these. They can encounter him through the word, but this will really help. This is an introduction to prayer that you can give to your friends. It's really simple. And every day they get to pray and have a go at it. And people come to faith whilst praying and coming through and working through this. So again, this is a really good thing to have in your top pocket or in your bag when you have a conversation or someone's having a life crisis. You know, it's all going wrong for me. Do you know what? I've found prayer really changes things when I'm up against. Would you like to have a go at Try Praying? Let me know how it works. Really, really simple tools, really simple resources. And they all come down to the fact that we are the best people to do this. We are the best people to do this. Local church is the best response. It's God's one plan here, right now, is his body being the local church. So you are the answer. You may not feel like the answer, but you are the answer in your locality, in your community, in your school, in your workplace. And so all that Hope does is try to resource that as we do that together and help local churches just to do this better together. But with all those stats from Talking Jesus, I just want to say we can do this. I'd love you to, I can't remember, we scribbled on a piece of paper what time we're supposed to end. 7 minutes. So if you want to split into groups and just talk about practical things that you've seen work in your church on any of these key festival moments, things you've done, that'll be great, and you'd help other people in your group. Thank you. 10 minutes. And please mix up with people you don't know, because you'll learn more from someone from another church than your own church. Please take the time to do this, because you can learn off each other. I've got one.
Give out all the others. There weren't enough for every one of those. You can get them online, yeah.
Yes, sorry, I need to explain that really clearly. So we'll definitely do that at the end. Yeah.
And then I can explain to them
Why don't you do that?
website.
Why don't you end? So we're doing that.
Yeah.
So you end.
So you're done on.
I'm done.
Right. Are you that good?
Yeah, but...
You're heading back to London tonight?
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's right. You do that. You do it.
Okay, if we can draw you back together again for a few moments. We've got people beginning to join us from the other workshops. But those of you who were in here for the workshop on hope and so on, I was just talking to Rachel and we were saying, if there was something that was shared in your group that you think we should really hear, so something shared by somebody else, then we'd really like to know about that. We haven't got time to do it as feedback now here in the hall, but if you want to send an email in to me, I've got the Hope web pages up on the website, and if there are some good ideas that come in, if there are some things that people have tried, we can add those resources to those pages. So that's just as a bit of feedback from this session. So those of you who are coming in, if you could find a seat, and in a few minutes we'll start our final worship. Just one thing to say two other things to say. One is on Hope 2018. We do have a load of pages up now, 4 pages up on the website on what we're hoping to do locally. There's a general page, then there's a calendar. You saw that Rachel went through the year. Ours starts in January and works through to December, a little more conventionally. But you'll find some suggestions for different parts of the year. One of the things you'll find on there is the Resolve course. That would have been one of our workshops today, or one of our marketplace things. It's a follow-up course for January based on the whole idea of New Year's resolutions. Looks like being a terrific resource, but if you're going to make use of it, you need to start thinking about what Rachel said. When people come to your carol services, and you get loads of extra people in saying, hey, if you've enjoyed this, and when you get into the new year and you're thinking about what am I going to do this year, you could say, why don't you come and join us as we explore this thing called Resolve? So you can see how a lot of these things involve thinking ahead. There'll also be a page on there about Deanery Missions. We are doing one in October in Doncaster Deanery, and both of our bishops have said that they are happy to look at fitting in short deanery missions next year, like we had with Crossroads when we had all the visiting bishops, and you'll find some resources on there, and I'm happy to come and work with deaneries to help them develop those, help them develop training in helping people to share their faith and so on. So have a look at that. And then I've also put up another page with sort of 5 key things which pick up some of the things that Rachel was saying earlier. So it's just some stuff on hope. The other thing which I should have said earlier in the day is you had, amongst the plethora of things that were on your chairs, feedback forms. And we do want some feedback on the day. So if you have a chance to fill those in, there will be a couple of boxes by the exit as you go out for feedback forms. But we'll just have a few moments now just for people to settle, and then we'll have our closing worship from just after 3 o'clock when Abby and the team are back, and Tom. Thank you.